Hey guys, welcome to another Q&A session from the Reaper blog. My name is John. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. And I want to thank everyone that has been watching the videos recently, all the new subscribers, all my patrons. You guys have really improved my life by just having you guys interact. It's great. All right, let's get into the questions. First question comes from Pat Autry. In Pro Tools, they always speak about 2-bus, the stereo bus, the mix bus, the print bus. What are the Reaper equivalents to these Pro Tools terms and approaches? In Reaper, that's basically just our master bus. Because we have faster than real-time rendering, we can run everything through that, and if everything's working correctly, it's going to sound exactly the same. Pro Tools only kind of recently got faster than real-time bouncing of the project, so they had to come up with different workflows to get the most out of the limitations that they had. At the time, there were a lot of kind of reasons why you would want to have real-time rendering, like you make more money because you can charge the client for that time, or it forces you to listen to the project. There were a couple good things that you could do with a real-time render recording to a track, and one of those is that you could listen to your mix, and if there was a problem, you could just stop there, make the correction, and then punch in on your final mix. So then at the end of that process, you just glue it, or make a new WAV file, and there's your mix. You could argue that that is faster or slower than just rendering it at faster than real time, listening to it and making a list of corrections, checking them, rendering it again. But anyways, that's something you can do with a real-time render. In Reaper, we don't need to do a real-time render unless we're going through analog hardware, and we can render those tracks individually or render the entire mix all at once in real time. So just in general, I don't think it's really necessary. There are some good workflow benefits from that, but I think the time saved by rendering as fast as possible is usually always worth it. Next question comes from Jeff A. Is there a best format for plugins, VST2, 3, or audio unit? Does Reaper process the audio units the same as VSTs? I mostly use VST2. There are a few plugins that will only be at their best with the VST3 version. There's certain functions that are only available in the VST3 version. Most of the time they're exactly the same, but then some things like sidechaining or auto-detecting the number of inputs or a few other things are only available in the VST3 versions. Waves plugins only use VST3 whether on Mac or Windows. Audio units are pretty much the same in most cases because they're just a wrapped version of the VST so that they can sell their plugin to Logic users. Unless the plugin's only available as audio units, most of the time it's just a port. One good reason to use VST2 or 3 instead of audio units is so that you can collaborate with Windows users. They can take your file, load it up, and as long as they have the same plugins installed and they're named the same on both platforms, it's going to open up perfectly fine. Next question comes from John C. I read recently that you should first render your mix, then apply effects to the rendered WAV file. I also read that if you have to apply equalising to your finished file, then you've somehow screwed up along the way and you should listen again to the individual tracks of the original mix. What's your take on this? And also, do you have any good ways to maximize without squashing song dynamics? So we're talking about mastering here, and it's always best to master your song in a separate project. In that separate project, you're going to listen to it a different way. You're not influenced by having a million options of possible things you can fix. You're kind of just limited to dynamics and EQ, thinking of the song as a whole, but also in context of other songs. And if it's just a single, you want to use reference tracks. Even if it's an album, you want to use reference tracks because you need to know the right balance of frequency, the right amount of compression to use, and just thinking about how one song will flow into another. So the loudness is definitely dependent on the maximum volume you can get out of that one song, just based on the content of it. You also need to think about what songs are coming before and after. You can't just make a song as loud as possible and expect it to work in context with the album. A good way to maximize without squashing song dynamics would be to, you can use parallel compression to bring up quiet sections of the song, just volume automation to change the volume dynamics. You only need about 4 dB between like verse and chorus sections. Beyond that, it can be a little bit weird. The verses can sound way too quiet, the choruses can sound way too loud. So parallel compression is a lot easier to do on a single track rather than bussing your whole mix through something so that you can do that. This is all stuff that we talk about pretty in depth in the Mastering Show podcast. This kind of stuff comes up a lot. So we've definitely covered this. Everything you need to know about limiting, EQ, everything involved with mastering is already covered in that show. The next question comes from Jose. How do you approach mixing toms that will cut through the mix? So, assuming the toms sound halfway decent already, the main tool that you're going to be using is EQ. I like to use a resonant high-pass filter first, and resonant means that there's a little spike at the cutoff frequency, the corner frequency of that filter. So it's cutting everything below, but it's also boosting right above. So I'm just finding the note where that drum kind of really resonates, usually the lowest note, or the note that it's tuned to. And so I just sweep that a little bit, and it's going to be around 100 hertz, maybe lower. When I find that frequency, I then make a fairly aggressive cut right above that, fairly steep, and that will make the drum sound bigger. It kind of depends on the genre, but I think we're talking metal drums here, and so you want like a big boom, you want stick attack. So if you've already done a high shelf to accentuate that stick attack, you want to go to some dynamic control with a transient shaper. So increase the attack, cut the sustain a little bit, and that's going to really help cut through. If that doesn't have quite the hard edge you're going for, try a clipper after that, which will just flatten the waveform out the transient. I recently saw a great video from Jordan V. He kind of explains this whole process with a great demo, so check that out, link in the description. Last question comes from Joshua. Any tips on how to present a portfolio? So to me, a portfolio is essentially your website, and I like to have everything on one page if possible. I haven't updated my website in a long time, but you can check that out at epicsounds.ca. It's all one page, and there are links at the top to scroll down to individual things. The essential things to have are examples of your work, a list of things you've worked on, and then also a brief description, and probably most important, contact information. So I've got phone number, email address there, and I make sure that people know what city I'm in. So those are things that are pretty important, pretty standard, but you would be surprised how many people will forget basic things like that. Now, if you want to make a really good demo reel, I suggest Real Talk. It's a stream that Kevin does on the Power Up audio channel on Twitch, and he gets submitted composition and sound design reels from people in the game audio industry. So they make a 1-minute demo reel, and they do it to the best of their abilities. Kevin rips it apart, and from the perspective of someone hiring, and also as someone that works in the industry, someone that is a sound designer himself. So he knows what sounds good. He knows how a demo reel should look if he's going to hire someone. So I've watched quite a few of those streams, and I always learn a lot, even though I have no interest in making a demo reel myself. So highly recommend that show, and all the previous episodes or previous streams are archived there on Twitch. So link again in the description. And that's it for this video. I want to thank all my patrons. You guys have been awesome. A lot of new patrons in the past month, really rocking my world. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. And if you guys want to support anything that I do here on the Reaper blog, there's a tip jar on the website, and you can sign up with Patreon at patreon.com/thereaperblog. You can also find the Reaper blog on Facebook and on Twitter, links in the description. There's also a Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/ReaperBlog community. We're having a lot of fun there, helping a lot of people. And finally, there's a lot more content on the Reaper blog website. So check out reaperblog.net for a lot more stuff. So check out reaperblog.net. All right, that's it. Thank you guys. See ya.